to the CoreWalking podcast, a step in the right direction. I'm Alex Mavalon.
And I'm Jonathan Fitzgordon.
And today we decided we're going to talk about meditation. Although we did decide that a while ago, then we went back and forth a little. And we decided we are going to talk about meditation, even though we had a nice conversation about the body and feet and things that always interest us just before we started with you guys. And I have to admit, like, I'm not an expert on meditation. I've tried it many times. I do like it when it happens, and more often than not, I'll be, doing constructive rest, which is what you have kind of taught me to do when my back is locked up or my pelvis is feeling a little tight. And that's when I'll meditate, right? That's because I feel like I can be fully at rest. There's nothing else to do. And I live in New York City. Like, there's always something going on. It's really hard to meditate and to, what was a quote? Read that quote again, because then I can kind of riff off that quote, because it was really interesting what you said, and it was like watching your thoughts. Go ahead, read it.
So yeah, okay.
You can preface it if you want.
It's Mingyur Rinpoche, and it's as long as you maintain awareness and mindfulness, no matter what happens when you practice, your practice is meditation. If you watch thoughts, that is meditation. If you can't watch your thoughts, that is meditation too. And I really love that because it's very easy for meditation to be very judgmental about, like, the way you meditate. I think that keeps a lot of people from meditating. Not necessarily myself included. So I've had I am 61 going on 62, and I have been involved to some extent with meditating since I'm like 17. From a good friend of mine who worked at the New York Open Center on Prince Street, and then it's really funny, like, meditation has followed me around my whole life. I didn't get involved in Siddha Yoga. Do you know Siddha Yoga at all? Guru Mai and Swami Muktananda. It's just crazy stuff, but a friend of mine that I behaved really badly with always had a picture of this guy on his dashboard, a little Indian fella, and it was Swami Muktananda and Siddha Yoga. And so that was like the first time I tried meditating, and it didn't go very well at all. And then I moved to Boston and hung out with all of these guys that were part of Friends of the Western Buddhist Order, and their guru was this guy Sangharakshita. And they were really weird dudes, but like that was like my second bout of really trying to meditate and sit, and I was just terrible at it. Like, there was no such thing as like that clearing my mind or calming my mind, and there was like for me a lot of judgment around it. So that's what. So I'd say in the last 4 months, I've had the best bout of meditating regularly in literally maybe 40 years, that I've tried over and over and over again, and I would do it pretty well for a while and then always fall off. So lately, I've been going for like 4 months, and for the first 3 months I was sitting up and trying to meditate in cross-legged, in lotus, sukhasana, siddhasana, and no matter what happened, my feet were falling asleep, which was driving me crazy. And I would just be constantly aware of where my pelvis was. I couldn't find a height that worked. And then I started meditating in constructive rest. I laid down, and constructive rest being my favorite pose in all of the world. All of a sudden, that for me really, really clicked in. And so of late, I've been able to actually figure out what it means to me, which is that my mind never shuts off.
Yeah.
It doesn't, and I'm no longer judgmental of it not shutting off. I am actually just enjoying it not shutting it off. And,
I
that's why I love that quote.
yeah, I mean
That was a long way around that.
what's that?
That was a long way around that.
No, I mean it is a good quote for that reason. I'm exactly like you, right? And I feel like maybe it's a pretty common feeling to think, if you meditate, you have to be able to shut your mind off. And it's just hard. Like you're constantly stimulated, especially in today's society. I feel like we're just, bombarded with stimuli all the time. And yeah, I think that was in the beginning. I was like, I'm just not good at it, and there's no good or bad. I think it's kind of like doing yoga. There's no good or bad. It's just about what you're able to achieve that day. And some days I'm able to, I feel like I might have said this on the podcast before, like a long time ago, but I remember the first time when I was able to kind of see my thoughts, like you said, and my mind kind of shut off. I went like there was like a blank, and it lasted for maybe a second at most. At most, you know what I mean? But I was like, oh, that's it. That's what it is. That's like, enlightenment, nirvana, and
I
and
like that. I've never even had that literally. Like for me, it's like, so the idea for me is follow the breath, right? And I was
yeah.
just in a group talking about meditation, and the impediment to meditation for most of them was that they felt like whenever they did it, the first instruction, a number of people brought this up, which is fascinating, was clear your mind. And to get ready
Yes.
to meditate. And they were like, that was so stressful. And I said,
It's so much pressure,
it's so much pressure and it actually makes no sense, right? Because the
Yeah.
idea, so um in the Yoga Sutra, the first Yoga Sutra, right, is Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha, which is the cessation of the mind stuff in the Satchitananda translation. Like calming the mind is what yoga is about.
Yeah.
Cessation of the mind stuff is yoga. And um that's it for me in terms of meditation is like there is no cessation of the mind stuff. Like my mind stuff never cessates. I am meditating and trying to return to my breath, but I have the laundry list of bizarre things. But most of the things that come into my head are mundane, like what do I got to do the rest of the day? What's going on with my kids? Um, but then sometimes it's memories. Sometimes it's like, for some reason, I'm like, why the hell did I just think of this thing that happened 10 years ago?
But isn't that part of it? Don't you think that's part of it? Like
It's totally, but
you
the
like
idea
access
is,
some like recesses of your mind, it's like and it's I think like I'm sorry to interrupt, but
no,
that
please.
was that was an interesting point you made, right? Is like, why the hell am I thinking about this weird thing? Then you start going down another rabbit hole. But then I think that like the time that for me it happened was and it's happened a couple of times since then. And when I say a couple, I mean like two. It's not and I've meditated a lot, for like maybe not hours, but certainly a lot of minutes on end. And it's just like once you get past all of that, and I think, it's like 20 minutes in, 15 minutes in, when you can actually start to like your breath slows down and you're in constructive rest, like your body, because it's what you were saying. Like if you're sitting and your foot falls asleep, that's really fucking distracting. You know what I mean? Like,
Totally.
and like for you, you're very open hip, but for me, like sitting cross-legged is not actually super comfortable, unless I've done like, and I guess that's the idea of like, that's the idea of doing like the asanas before you meditate is like, you want your hips to be open. So yeah, unless at the end of a yoga class, I feel like, oh, my hips are better, but I'm still not comfortable enough to feel like I can shut my mind off, you know? Um,
No, totally. The only point of asanas is to get ready to meditate. Like that is the whole idea. Make your body better for the breath and better to meditate. Yeah, but it's fascinating like that. Um, but that's the whole point as well sometimes. It's like to have knee pain and sit through the knee pain and not be bothered by it, which gets a little nutty. Um,
that's cool if you can, you know.
Yeah, so but and just the whole thing though, that the goal is to not go down the rabbit hole of thought, right? The goal is to return to the breath and go down another rabbit hole until you realize I'm going down a rabbit hole. Let me return to my breath.
Yeah.
And I've actually started using a mantra,
I think that's helpful.
Soham, which is just like a classic yoga mantra. Uh, I am, right? So on the inhale, hum on the exhale. And I have found that to be helpful in concentration, but still like the mind just goes where the mind goes, and I got to keep coming back. And then what I feel like the difference in the last 4 months is I could care less when I realize my mind is spinning out and just return to the breath without thinking, without getting really stressed. And it's also the first time where I'm kind of like not clock obsessed and not thinking about like when is this over? I've tried every kind of meditation and I shouldn't say every kind of meditation. I've tried lots of different kinds of meditation. Um, and the last bout I was trying was just like 15 minutes of sitting with 5 minutes, a ding every 5 minutes. And to like, for whatever reason, but it
That
was like
sounds
one of the
awful.
options. Oh, it was awful. It was like, when's the next ding coming? When is the last ding so I could be done with this? And so yeah, temporarily, for whatever reason, it's gotten so much easier in terms of not caring about that lately. And I can credit constructive rest. And constructive rest is the greatest pose ever.
Agree.
And it's so great now to combine the two, right? Like, why do I need to sit up? And I do not think there's any lack of value in meditating lying down. And the idea that I can let my body completely and my psoas completely relax in constructive rest and focus on my breath and a mantra and try to, figure out whatever it means to let the mind go blank, which literally never ever happens. I have a friend who lived in a monastery
Hmm.
and she meditated 4 hours a day and 4 separate hours. And she said every single time it took her a half hour for her mind to actually clear. And she described it as going to like a cool blue lake, was the place she went after a half hour. But she said it never got any easier. Like it never happened before a half hour over the course of, I think she was there like 18 months. Um,
18 months. It's a long time.
yeah, isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it's a long time.
Um, it's yeah, so I've always believed in the value of meditation without any question about it, but have never been able to do it regularly. And I was doing it regularly sitting up, but it was kind of annoying. So now doing it laying down has just been sort of revelation.
I know you're supposed to sit up. I mean, it seems like you're supposed to be sitting up when you meditate, but again, I'm like you. I find it not comfortable and very distracting in a way. And it's true that when you're in constructive rest and everything is kind of sinking into the floor, you're much more apt to kind of finding that emptiness of mind, if we can call it that. But also, like, Shavasana is where you're supposed to meditate in yoga, right? So
No,
for
no, you're supposed to meditate in
in lotus.
lotus or siddhasana. Like not everyone is built for lotus. One or the other, really. But one in a way, I think like lotus is meditation and Siddhasana is pranayama.
Right.
Like there are definite like ideas about how you should sit, but yeah, I just think it
What's
doesn't
Siddhasana?
matter.
That's hero pose.
Meditate. Say again.
Sirasana.
Siddhasana.
Siddhasana. Which one is that?
It's yeah, it's not. It's one foot is folded into the groin, left foot like to the pubic bone, left heel
Yeah.
to the pubic bone, and then the right foot sort of on top of the left shin facing up. It's not the easiest pose to get into, but it's pretty basic. And sometimes you can tuck the foot in. Um, but that's Siddhasana. And then Sukhasana is just like cross-legged.
Yeah.
Um, none of which are easy for most people, right? Like they're just not to be taken for granted. But that's the ideal. But my point is, why not meditate in Shavasana? Why not meditate in constructive rest? I just don't think there's anything um, wrong with it. And
Yeah.
yeah,
No, I have a friend that I hadn't seen for a while that I saw recently, and she was like, "Yeah, I meditate." I was like, "Yeah, you seem calmer." She's like, "Yeah, I meditate." And I'm like, "Oh, when do you do it?" She's like, "Whenever." Sometimes I meditate when I'm on the subway, if I'm taking the subway to work, or sometimes I'll meditate just in my chair at work. Sometimes I meditate when I'm at home. And so I guess it's just a matter of being able to stop and take a moment for yourself, right?
I think that's totally valid. I don't treat it that way. Like for me, and I have to do
Right.
things, I have to create habits. So for me, I'm doing it immediately when I wake up.
Right. That's
As
good.
you know, within an hour, within a half hour, but I try to literally get out of bed and come into my office and do constructive rest and meditate. And
You get up at 3:45 in the morning to do that, like your
what's
client.
that?
You don't get up at 3:45 in the morning to do that, like
No, I used to get up at 6 in the morning and now I get up at 7, 7:30. I have retrained my
circadian rhythm.
I don't know. I really am so fat. I got up at 6 in the morning my whole like adult life, probably at least 30 to 58. Every morning, 6 o'clock, up and out of bed. And now, after getting so obsessed with sleep and realizing that we need to sleep more than 6 hours a night, which is what I was sleeping.
Yeah, you do.
I sleep till 7, 7:30, and it just is it's the best. It's incredible. I want to stick with meditation, but I also want to tell you about grounding mats. So we're going to come back to that. Uh,
Grounding what?
Grounding mats and grounding sheets. The latest wacky thing that I'm into, which is just, I believe, possibly really great. But I'll come back to that. Meditation. That's the whole point of asana is to like on a technical level of like the limbs of yoga, right? You're
Yeah.
preparing the body to meditate. So physically, again, like not to compare sitting up to constructive rest, but it's so much easier to do it on your back. So like Zen meditation, they used to, I don't think they do anymore, but they used to literally like, walk around with a stick and beat you if you did not have a fully erect posture.
Hmm.
So there's all different ways to sit. And then one of my favorite stories was one of my first yoga teachers, one of my first adult yoga teachers, um, went on a 10-day retreat and like, convinced herself, which is can be 10 hours of meditating, 4 hours of meditating, whatever it is, it's a lot of meditating. And she convinced herself she would be able to just sit the whole time, um, comfortably on a cushion. And within like before the first day was over, she had like a bolster and pillows. And then there was a woman in front of her who never moved, right? Sat perfectly erect, perfect posture, never moved the whole time. And that my teacher by the end had built an entire throne for herself, like arms supported, legs supported, and silent retreat. And at the end, they were in the changing room getting ready to leave. And she said to the woman, "You are amazing. Like, I couldn't sit. Like, I had to build this whole throne for myself, and I was behind you." And the woman was like, "F this place. This is the worst experience of my life. I can't believe I just had to sit like that." And I love that story, right? Because that's the whole game. My friend who built the throne, she had a great experience because she took care of herself in that way. Um, so that's a good meditation story. Uh,
Oh, yeah, I think it's the same with like restorative yoga, right? Where you're just sitting in these, you get a bolster and a strap and put your head on a block and whatever, get into these very kind of restful poses where it's either a chest opener or a hip opener or both at the same time. and just stay there, but it's comfortable. You know what I mean? Whereas like being in Warrior 2 is not necessarily comfortable. You know what I'm saying?
Totally.
I
No
went to
question.
a yoga class. I hadn't been to a yoga class in a while, and I went to two in the past week.
Excellent.
And yeah, because I went to one on Friday when I was at my mother-in-law's place, and it was happened to be like this very little studio in Upper Saddle River, New Jersey, or Saddle River, New Jersey, which has literally nothing there except like a gas station and a couple of stores, and then a yoga studio.
Fancy houses, right?
Yeah, it's very fancy, and it is actually run by a woman who was trained in Anusara yoga, so it was very
Oh
fun.
my God, that's hysterical.
Chaya something, I forget her last name, but and so yeah, so it was definitely, I walked in and she's like, "Is this your first time?" I'm like, "Well, it's my first time here, but I've done yoga before." She's like, "Oh," I'm like, "Yeah, actually, that's trained and with two Anusara teachers." So, and she was like, "Oh, really?" So that was an interesting experience. And then it just felt, I was like, "Wow, I really missed this actually." So yesterday I went to another class, and I was
And it was a good class, you thought?
the one on Friday. Yeah, it was definitely a very good like post Thanksgiving class.
That's great.
And it was just like we used the wall a lot, which I really love. Love the feedback from the wall. Um, and I felt like really, I was like, wow, this was really like grounding. It was really grounding in a way. You know what I mean? Because I've been lifting a lot and like doing a lot of kettlebells like you, and I train clients all day. Then I'm like, I have to kind of look the part a little bit. All my coworkers are like a norm. You
That's so
you're like,
interesting.
I'm okay, especially now with this like blurred background. You can I look even thinner, but
No, dude, you actually, I think there's probably a benefit to not looking like that in
yeah,
terms
I
of
think
the
it's,
client.
yeah, I think, and I'm also 52, and these people are like in their 20s and 30s. You know what I mean?
That is brilliant. That's so
So
great.
I think people approach me for that. They're like, you've been here for a while. I really like the way you train.
You've been here for 30 years.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly. No, I was really flattered the other day as a kind of a sidebar, but I was really flattered. There's a woman who's there every day, and she's in her 50s, but she's very strong, like very solidly built. Um, and she works out. She does all this kettlebell stuff and barbells, and she's strong. She's really strong. And she was like, I was training someone, and she's like, you're in really good hands with him, because he's a great trainer. I was like, wow, that's really nice. And
that's
I haven't
so
ever
great.
before. And she's like, yeah, I love the way that like you focus on, work on like core and stability and balance. And like very few trainers actually work on those foundations, but I think it's really important. And she used to compete. So she's like, she's like she knows what she's doing, is my point. And so I was really kind of flattered by that. But she's also in her mid 50s, I think. And so I think it's like, everybody that like not everybody that I train, but a lot of people I train, I'm like, you got to focus on balance, because balance is everything when you get older. You don't want to fall. You can be like super muscular, but if you fall and break your fucking hip, your hip is broken. Like you can be strong. It doesn't matter. So
Well,
that was my sidebar, but I really kind of going back to meditation.
wait, but I want to actually comment on that.
Yeah,
I actually think muscle prevents you from breaking your hip. Like,
that's true.
I think in a huge way, the more muscle you have, the less likely you are to splinter as you get older and as you fall. I took my first fall of the season. It's 20 something degrees out. It's killer. And we have a terrible driveway, which is a whole story about getting ripped off by a contractor that I don't want to go into. But we have a terrible driveway, and it turns into
Sidebar,
like
sidebar.
it's right. It's a puddle. There are all these puddles in the driveway, and they turn into ice, which is fine when you can see them. But then
Right.
there's like when there's an inch of snow, they disappear from the human eye.
Hmm.
And I did a full split, man. My My right leg just went straight forward. My left leg went straight back. I banged my left knee on the ground and I was like, up first fall of the season. And I didn't get hurt, which I love, right? I mean, I lived just like full split, full out. And I knew immediately I didn't get hurt. It just banged up my knee a little bit, but
No, I mean, I know you're right because just to use another anecdotal evidence, I know you're right. And I said that more as a encouragement for people to work on their balance than anything else.
absolutely.
I have a client who's 79 years old. She took a really bad fall like a couple of years ago and had a brain hemorrhage. And so she's been recuperating from that and has had some balance issues. So we work on that, but we've also been working on building muscle because she has osteoporosis. And she said the other day she fell and she really hurt herself like badly on her. She had like a big hematoma on her butt. She just got like a big bruise and she couldn't even work out for like a week. And she said, I went to the doctor and she said, I should be really thankful for all these butt muscles that I've built because that's what prevented me from breaking my hip. So
So great.
there's no question that like having worked on those with me, this exceptional trainer,
Yeah, actually,
um,
she should pay you to
she's
save money,
given
that all the money she's going to save not going to doctors. Do you know what these things are?
they look like some kind of weird sex toy, but I don't
Yeah,
know.
they're not. They're yak tracks, diamond. Um, they're for the bottom of your shoes, and
Oh yeah.
they prevent you from slipping on ice. They are a lifesaver
Oh yeah.
when you're like me and there's ice underfoot,
Much
and you
better.
have a dog,
What's that?
and you have a dog that pulls you.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
But yeah, let's circle back to meditation because actually it's interesting that speaking about this client of mine, she does a lot of qigong as well. So because her wife is a qigong teacher, it turns out.
I love Qigong and Tai Chi and anything done well, Tai Chi has a history of, and Qigong, of posterior tilt in your exercise, which I don't love.
Yeah.
But you don't have to do it that way, and it's not taught that way all the time anymore. But
It's a
they're both
meditation.
great practices, yeah.
I mean, they're both moving meditations, right? So
Yeah, and there's walking meditation where you literally can uh meditate while you walk, literally. And then
I wonder how that worked. That would never work for me.
well, you do it on retreat. You do it by yourself. If you live in a forest, you could do it in the
Yeah.
city. Meditation is all about working through distraction. So
I don't think I could
I
do
don't do
it.
that very well. That's why I like to live. But I'm fascinated by when you meditate. Now it's so quiet because it's the winter, but in the summer, meditating early in the morning in constructive rest, it's like you have to listen to leaf blowers and lawn mowers and all the sounds of summer and birds, and that's interesting. Whereas like for me, meditating on the train, it's not so good or so bad, It's just I take the easy way out by being as quiet as I can in my empty room, which works
I
for
think
me.
meditating on this train is actually not. I find it a little easier
Oh, that's great.
doing everything out. I have to close my eyes, but I find it easier to tune everything out. Um,
Yeah, I always meditate with my eyes closed, which is not necessarily a rule of thumb. A lot of meditation is eyes slightly open, heavy
yeah,
lidded.
that's because if it's working through the distraction, it's definitely easier to do it with your eyes closed than when you have like a bunch of visual stimuli coming at you. It's a lot harder, I would think.
Well, there's also meditation of like, looking at a candle flame kind of thing.
Right,
It's like single focused meditation because
right.
I think it can be like,
Be powerful.
yeah. It doesn't have to be a candle. And then there's just all different kinds of meditation in terms of like, I was telling my sister that I did a weekend retreat with Pema Chodron, and we worked on Tonglen meditation, which is the act of giving and taking, where you're, giving love out to the world, taking on the pain and suffering of the world. Um,
That's pretty profound.
and you meditate on someone you love, someone you don't know, like you meditate on strangers. You send love to like yourself, strangers, um, someone you love, and someone you hate. And I was telling my sister, like I was meditating really like pretty steadily at that point. And I went on this retreat and something about it just ripped my world apart. It was really difficult for me and it brought up a lot of really dark stuff, and especially like around my father. And after that weekend, like, I don't know, 2 weeks later, I realized, oh my God, I'm not meditating. Like, I completely stopped. Like, it was such a
Wow.
not good experience for me. It was really dark and painful. And I totally stopped. And it was just an unconscious thing where I just totally stopped. And then I realized, like, oh, wow, that didn't sit well with me. And I just completely stopped this practice that I had. Over the years, I've had moments of going really well with sitting and meditating. And that was one of them. And I thought she was amazing. Pema Chodron was really interesting.
All right.
Uh, but here's an interesting thing
Pretty
about
cool you get to do a retreat with her.
I,
It's cool you get to do a retreat with her.
yeah, I've done a bunch of them with like, big teachers and stuff. I used
Can
to
you
go,
explain who she is real quick?
what's that?
Can you explain who she is for our
Yeah,
audience?
she's, a Buddhist nun, Nova Scotia. She lives in the middle of nowhere, basically, and she travels the world and she's written incredible, incredible books. I'm spacing out on the one I like the most. I probably have it here. I have a slideshow here that we were talking about earlier. I'll tell you my favorite. There's a lot of, no, I don't have it. Okay. Um, I want to say When Things Fall Apart, but I think that's like a new book. I don't know. My son, I mean, read a book in school that I think was called When Things Fall Apart. It was not written by Pema Chodron, but maybe it is. But she's amazing, But that particular weekend rocked my world in a not so good way. But she, who I really believe is amazing, is sort of caught up in scandal, like every meditation teacher. It's so dark, I have to say. Like, so her, and I could possibly get the name wrong, but I'm not going to. I think it's the right person. But her teacher was Trungpa Rinpoche, and
Mhm.
he was like a drunk an abuser. And she didn't defend him, but she referred to him as her teacher and did not disavow herself from him, which is, I guess, on a certain level, a loyalty and thing. But that's a little dark, right? And it's a lineage thing. So like, but he was, drunk with power, which happens to a lot of these guys. Uh, it's really dark. I have a really good friend of mine who's also a meditator who I've known for 40 something years and was one of my dearest friends. And he said something, we were talking about this stuff, I don't know, like a month ago about scandal and yoga.
It seems to, yeah,
And
yoga.
he said something really intense to me, which was that, you could say that all these girls that are involved with these gurus, like young girls and gurus or young boys and gurus, he's like, they're just working out their karma. And I thought that was so dark.
So what do you mean they're working out their karma?
Well, that's how you would justify bad behavior amongst gurus. They all behave badly. Like not all, obviously, right?
A lot of
But
it is.
so many of them, like that, the Friends of the Western Buddhist Order that I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Like my sister was deeply involved with the American chapter. They lived in Boston and they lived in this geodesic dome in the middle of the forest in New Hampshire. It was such a strange bunch of guys. They were teachers at like Northwestern, and not all of them, but a number of them were professors at college. You know, Boston is just a city of endless colleges. And so they lived in Boston to teach and stuff. But they also lived in this geodesic dome, and I'm pretty sure it was New Hampshire. Um, and they were really nice guys, but they were also really creepy. And I was like 15 or 20 years younger than all of them, I guess, 10 years younger, 10 years probably. Uh, but I just thought they were all lost and had weird sexuality stuff, and it was supposed to be celibate, but none of them was celibate. And so recently I went, so their teacher was this guy Sangarakshita. It turns out my sister met because she was really heavily involved with them. And I went and looked them up online, and it was like sex scandal stuff, where he actually had men sleeping with men as a spiritual journey kind of thing. Anyway, it was very strange, and all of these, so many of, I keep saying all, but so many gurus end up poorly. When you look into them, like even TM, the TM dude Maharishi, like
Mhm.
uh it's just intense. It's not even necessarily scandal, but they always get accused. Like I've read a bunch of stuff about people who felt like it was a cult where they just took all their money, you know,
Yeah,
and
David Lynch contributes so much money to transcendental meditation.
it's unbelievable, which I believe in. Like he believes that it can change the world, and that's what he
Yeah,
wants to do with his life, and it's a beautiful thing. He does a lot of things. Um, but yeah, no, what a great thing to do on a certain level, but also when the lineage is corrupt at its heart, it's or at its start or at its core or something like that, it's dark. Um,
yeah.
So, and there's so many scandals of these guys, and usually of a sexual nature and often of a pedophilic nature, pedophilic or I wonder how pedophiliac nature.
Pedophilia, pedophilic.
Um, that makes it really dark.
Yep.
And power is just such a weird thing. I watched a documentary called Kumari. Do you know what this movie is?
No.
It's really funny. It's a good movie.
It is.
Uh, what's
I know
that?
that. Yo, go ahead. I want to know
It's
more
uh
about it.
it's funny because it starts in New York, at a friend of mine's yoga center. For some reason it shows like uh outdoors of their yoga center. And
Mhm.
then it's this guy who's a contemplative Indian dude who goes, can anyone be a guru? And he lets his hair grow and he puts on orange robes and he goes out west and he just kind of, insinuates himself into this community and becomes a guru. And so he's a fake guru, and it's just really interesting story about watching people get, behave in cult-like behavior and believe in somebody and accept yeah, it's just fascinating. And then in the end, he has to reveal himself. It's really so meditation
Called
really
Kamari.
good. And Kumare, Kumare, meditation really good. Meditation organizations not always so good.
Oh yeah, there was I had one of my clients who was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go to a meditation, group in like Park Slope. I just want to check it out or whatever." And so she went, and I was like, "Oh, like the next week, I was like, how was it?" And she's like, "No, I'm never going there again." It was super weird. Like it was exactly what you just described, essentially. Like she said it was super weird. They like, it was like going to when you go to like Scientology or Landmark, they really try to like rope you in, to that to
Uh-huh.
the whole thing. She felt that way, like they were trying to extort money from her and everything. And she's pretty headstrong, so she was like, "No, I'm just gonna go and never come back." Basically,
It's great.
And
I have a
she
long,
was like, "Yeah, my meditation experience was really negative as a result, right?" And So I know she never went back, and I think that place shut down pretty soon thereafter, actually. Um, but yeah, I think like meditation or a lot of meditation organizations are maybe not great.
And there are a bunch that I think are really great. Like did a bunch of retreats with Sharon Salzberg.
Hmm.
John Friend and Krishna Das and Sharon Salzberg used to do these retreats together, and I went to a number of them. And I think she's great. And their retreat center and Joseph Goldstein, I want to say if not, it's not Goldberg. Joseph Goldstein, I think they're really good people, and they are not marred by scandal that I know of because I've just
Yeah.
not looked.
Yeah.
Um, but uh, that's just a weird, dark thing. But that doesn't mean like meditation is very good for us, right? It's just really, it's good for the brain. It's
Yeah.
like, so
No, I agree, and I think it's true that like I do find that like a group meditation always makes me feel a little more self-conscious in a way. So I have to get past that before I can even get to the part where I can slow my breathing down. But for what it's worth, and I know I haven't brought up Wim Hof in a long time, but when I was doing like his like breathing methods and stuff like that, I felt much more able to get into kind of a meditative space. And I was really like about holding your breath for, if you know, his thing is like taking like 30, 40 breaths, like 30 really big kind of hyperventilating breaths, and then kind of try to on hold your breath on empty or on full. I can't remember. But anyway, I worked my way up to like 2 minutes or something like that. And
wow, that's impressive.
yeah, and then you really feel like there's a point where like I don't know, this kind of maybe oxygen deprivation or whatever it is makes you more contemplative. So
It's very, very powerful stuff. That I have not spent a lot of time with the breathing method. I really dig. I've only done the cold plunge once, but I really loved it, and I would really like to do that regularly. I would like to do sauna regularly. Um, but I just read a
yeah,
whole article, like not just like a couple of months ago, about Wim Hof and
oh
his
yeah,
own scandal.
what's
Um,
his candle?
he's just an abusive dude who was a really bad husband and bad father and drunk and
Yeah,
uh, it's just fascinating to will to power often leaves people in your wake and
his wife killed herself.
yeah, that's a previous. Yeah, no, it's really intense. People are really intense. And the desire to be a powerful leader of an organization or a spiritual leader, like, I don't know, is there a corruption at its heart? I don't get it, but it's fascinating how many of these guys are just scandalized. And again, not all, but so many. So yeah, that was funny to read the Wim Hof. Like everyone has a, a
everyone has
dark
a
side.
dark side.
But
Yeah,
I think his stuff is kind of brilliant. And he certainly has acolytes, people who really think that they've purely been saved from disease by his method and by
yeah.
the plunge. And so I'm fascinated by that, and I think it's pretty great stuff. But I'm just in the context of this and saying all these Buddhist guys are scandalized. There you go with Wim Hof, and uh,
You can't get away from it, man.
no, you can't get away from it. Corruption is powerful. But meditation is old, and I am into things that are old. Anything that's been around for 5,000 years
Yeah,
uh, can't be bad.
like Christianity.
Yeah, no,
Exactly.
I won't say that. So you got me there. Um,
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 no, I'm being facetious, obviously, but yeah, I mean, I guess it's it's like you said, meditation is good for us, right? I mean, we're both yoga teachers. You've been a yoga teacher much, much longer than I have. Um, that's the whole idea, right? You do yoga so that you can prepare your body for meditation.
that's it. Yeah.
And
Um,
I mean, I think, in the modern world, it's taken on some other kind of shape, the yoga, but ultimately that is what it's for, right? But
yeah, but so like meditation is taken on a different shape in that it's not, you don't have yoga. I would even say the idea, even in modern yoga, is still to build your body for meditation. It's not like that's not, people are not aware of that. But many
right.
people just do yoga just to do asana. But that's so great because all it is exercise that's really good for you.
Yeah.
So there's no downside whatsoever unless you're getting hurt because you're not thinking about the way you do it or your teachers are not thinking about the way you do it. But um, just to do vinyasa, but Buddhists are not notorious exercisers. And, there's plenty of meditation with no exercise whatsoever and no thought of building a better body to prepare you for meditation. So that's the whole idea of asana, which I think is brilliant, because I forget meditation. I'm teaching sitting and that you want to be, I'm sitting, I'm just leaning backwards and relaxing, but you want to be able to sit up in your chair with a good pelvis and a long spine and do that for hours, right? You want to have muscles that allow you to do that for hours and hours and hours without any thought about it, without ever going, oh my God, I'm so tired, I have to round backwards, right? You
Yeah.
just want to be able to sit up. Um,
No, it's hard. And find your sit bones and all this.
yeah, but it's only hard if you don't build balance muscle. That's right. Just when it gets to body stuff, it's not that that's easy to build balance muscle, but to me, it's like if you have a core and you have spinal muscles and you have the ability to put your pelvis in a neutral position, which not everybody does, right? Some people are so tight, they're constantly pulled into a posterior tilt or constantly in an anterior tilt. But if you can have a neutral pelvis and stack your spine and build your core muscles and your spinals, I don't know, should be able to sit up for hours and hours and hours and hours.
I'm sitting on a ball right now. I don't think it's. I'm really not super comfortable, to be honest. I keep rounding back. I can feel it.
Yeah, it's very difficult on a ball, but it's also why a ball is so great.
Yeah.
That what you use for a desk chair, a big ball?
Yeah, but I usually sit at my kitchen table when I'm working, so I don't have like my desk is it's not. I need to reorganize this place. Not that that's any of any interest to anybody listening to this,
Well, I love that
but
you have your
I do like
background
sitting on
now
the
that we don't,
ball.
yeah.
What's that? Yeah, because it's in my bedroom and I just felt weird.
But
Um,
I have my ball here, which is back bending. I mostly use that to back bend, but I do that, 4 or 5 days a week, just lay over it. And
Everybody should do it
yeah,
because we're all like this or like this all the
yeah,
time.
totally. It's so great, and like my
Chest.
nephew was here and I was showing it to him. And it's just everyone's instinct is the external rotation. And it's not even a criticism, right? But like when he got into it, it was not simple and comfortable for him necessarily, but he got into a wheel on the ball, and it's a pretty small ball. It's not a huge back bend. Um, but everything is just splayed open, and I'm like, pull your elbows in, and it's a ton of work to get the elbows in, and then I'm like, now roll your feet in because the tendency is to just roll out and be on the outside of your foot. So for me, all of that is inner foot, elbows in, but I love the back bends on a ball is a great, great thing.
Yeah, I don't have people do back bends, but I just have them lean back with their hands behind their head and just pull on their elbows a little bit, like really gently. And they're like, wow, that feels so amazing. And like, you should be doing this literally every day, every single day.
So, so great. So
And
one way to get them there is you have them bring their hands to touch and keep the elbows in and go back and keep going back. And if their fingertips ever touch the floor and it's easy, you just have them put the hands down. And then they're in wheel. And when you're in wheel, when you're grounded feet and hands, you can do amazing shit because you engage if you engage your abs and release your abs, you can feel your lumbar just collapse and get support and collapse and get support.
right.
And then all of the elbows in, which is just all lats, and then inner foot to inner thigh. It's such the back bends of the ball are phenomenal, phenomenal exercise. Really, really great stuff.
I'm gonna
Um,
figure that out because I do have a couple of clients who are like, so they're just round, And it's like one of them is because it's just her traps are super tight from like just a lifetime of being like this. And then the other guy, it's like his lats are super tight, so they kind of wrap around. So he ends up here. So like opening him up is really hard. But every time I do, he's like, that feels so awesome.
do you have them doing cactus on the back?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And
Well, you should just do that 50,
he does it every day.
yeah, 15 minutes a day
Yeah.
is the way to open it. Because you open everything, for some, it's just different for everybody. Because some people it's like, oh yeah, sure, I can just do that.
Yeah.
Right? But other people like can be so tight in their pecs, right? Where they're like literally everyone is so different. The arms are here, or the elbows are here, and the arms are here. Like it's such a great
No, and
and
again, coming back to meditation, you can like get into that posture and just meditate there and let it open, because
yep.
it's true that you'll end up you just might start here, but then progressively, gravity is a powerful force. It'll bring you down, right? And everything will open. It'll take time,
Well,
but
no, but do it every day. What I tell people is, and I don't do it a ton. I do constructive rest way more than I do cactus on the back. I should probably do cactus on the back. Going forward in my meditation. There's no reason not to. But I really love constructive rest. But cactus on the back, if you do it every day for a month, 15 minutes or more, you will be a completely different person. These muscles are going to release. Maybe some people need more than a month. I've worked with some people who are just like elbows off the floor, forearms off the floor. It's like it's cruel to not give them blankets and stuff, right? Um, so
yeah,
that might take more than a month. But if somebody does that every single day for a month, that whole chest is going to release and open,
yeah,
right? And get way more access to the lats, and the traps are going to relax. It's a great, these shapes are amazing and crazy. And then the thing is that I did constructive rest for years and years. It's been almost 20 years that I'm doing it. And I don't do it every day by a long, now I'm doing it every day, right? But I, in general, didn't do it every day and never meditated while I did it,
yeah,
right? So it was meditative, but I never tried to do, I just laid there and, I did my laundry list of whatever I was going to do the rest of the day. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It's still great to give your body a break and just lay there for 15 minutes, right? But the difference between meditate and meditative, I think there's a distinction, and maybe there isn't, right? But in that now I'm actually have this idea of focus on my breath and do this mantra with my breath, and that is more specific. And then if the mind wanders, but always return to that moment of Soham, inhale, exhale. And that purpose is what meditation is. And I'm fascinated because maybe there's absolutely no difference between that and just laying in constructive rest and not and thinking about whatever you want, right? Maybe there isn't any brain difference, but to me, that's the difference in what is and isn't meditation. And the idea is that it's better, whatever that means, to meditate with focus and
Right.
than it is
And
to just
repetition.
let the mind wander.
I
Um,
think the repetition of like the mantra is also very much brings you out of like thinking about anything else, if that makes any sense. Like I've always found the kind of continuing to like even chanting, which I'm not a huge fan of, but it's very repetitive, right? You chant the same thing like five, six, seven, 10 times, whatever it is, and you end up in a place where that's all that your mind is focusing on, right? So everything else goes to the side.
yeah, so like look, yoga has many ways. This is one of my favorite things. Shake your hand around, right? Five fingers, many paths, and then one finger, one truth. Many paths, one truth, right? And yoga does not care how you get there, how you end up at this sense of enlightenment, right? So you can do it through asana of a sort, but not really. But you could do it through study, literally just, study. You could do it through devotion, self-service, giving up the ego for a better purpose. And you could totally do it by chanting the name of God, right? And try to do that basically 24/7. Um, when I started doing yoga, right? So I was like 32 and it was Lower East Side and Jivamukti yoga and it was Krishna Das doing satsang, kirtan. Kirtan is the musical thing. Satsang is just any kind of gathering, right? Krishna Das doing kirtan, and there were like 10 people there, and I had zero interest in it whatsoever. But then got a girlfriend who was the manager and got sucked into that world, something fierce, and was a vegan for 5 years, and started going to kirtan. And at first, I'm like, Jewish kid from Brooklyn, like I have no interest in chanting. And I had seen hair. I grew up with hair, so I knew Hare Krishna from that as much as anything else. And then all these other experiences with Muktananda, and like it was very natural for me. Um, and then I totally got into it, right? Within a couple of weeks of going once a week. I was listening to Krishna Das CDs at home, which is not, was not on my bingo card at that time in my life. And it was just amazing so that was a room and it grew to like 20 people, 30 people, like the place was packed. Everyone dancing, whirling dervishes in the back but everyone chanting and call and response, endless call and response. And then I did it at the City Yoga Foundation with like 1,500 people with Guru Mai, who my wife described her voice as like, nails on a blackboard. She just really didn't like the sound of it. But when you're chanting with 1,500 people, it is the most powerful, insane trip, and feeling like you're just swallowed and just really amazing stuff. So it's not technically meditation, but it's certainly one path to God if you believe in God, or one path to enlightenment if you believe in enlightenment, of which, like, you know, I don't have much of a connection to either of those two things. Um, but yeah, I think chanting is a phenomenal. If you ever get to go to kirtan, like I was teaching at Kripalu a couple of years ago, pre-COVID, so 5 years ago now. Um, and I hadn't been to kirtan in at least a decade, and I heard it. Like I was walking through the monastery, the hotel, whatever you want to call Kripalu, and I hear kirtan, and I went in, and I was like transported, like immediately. It was like, oh yeah, like the sense memory, and I'll still put Krishna Das on. Like that stuff is so great and powerful. So not meditating, but chanting, and huge plug for that stuff. If you have a yoga center in your area that offers kirtan,
Hmm.
sometimes it's musicians, sometimes it's not, but it's always call and response and just chanting the name of God. If you're not offended by that, I don't care. Um, but it's all it is chanting the name of God over and over and over again. But there's Hanuman songs, and it's just
Yeah.
Really, really great stuff that I haven't done in a long time. And as I say it, I wistfully miss it and go, "Oh, I should be doing that," and I never will. But um, really, really good business.
Why won't you? Why don't you just go find a place in your area?
I don't know. I know someone who actually does it, who leads them. Someone from Jivamukti's from, so that's like 1995 I started going there. That's a long time.
Yeah, that is a long time.
Yeah. And so literally trying to meditate since I'm, 18, 19, 20, and in a weird way feeling I'm finally succeeding at 61. It's pretty good business. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, that's not bad at all.
Perseverance will further.
Um, yeah, I mean, I never used to meditate when I was, but I always find that, you know, when you call it prayer in the Catholic Church, but it is a meditation in a way, it's again, it's like you repeat the same mantra, right? Our Father, it's the same mantra. Um, what's the one? There's the Mary, the one to Mary as well. I forgot which one it is, but
Hail Marys.
Hail Mary, yeah. And it's like why are you saying all these things over and over again? It is like a meditation, right? So
It is
it's
no
really,
question about
really
it. It is
fascinating.
all religion is devotional. All devotion is like to God, and they all have their ways of chanting or moving, right?
Yeah,
Like Judaism davening and
yeah,
Indian whirling dervishes, and in Christianity you're getting up and down a lot. Like there's a ton of movement. But
yeah,
I don't know if you know George Carlin, but I grew up with
yeah.
George Carlin, and
Comedian.
he said, I forget, it was like Sister Mary Elephant or whatever the bit was, but the priest goes, "Yeah, yeah, give me, four High Fathers and three Hail Marys, and you're good to go." Um, Going back to comedy from my childhood, um, which was way more interesting than meditation when I was 10 years old.
Oh yeah. Um, that's yeah, but it's weird when I used to be very much into like Catholicism or into going to church, and
I
I think
love that. When you were
I
how
don't
old?
know when I was like 8, 9, I used to say prayers before bed.
Wow.
And it was like there was always like a
Awesome.
quantifying, I really wanted to say as many as I would say like 10 Our Fathers or whatever. And I just think, oh, I did 10 of them. And it really didn't make that much sense. But um, I fell off that pretty quickly.
Do you remember when you stopped and why you stopped?
I think when we moved to the States, we didn't have a place of worship to go to. And I stayed with it, and it was really more because my grandparents were very devout. And I stuck with it for like a while. I went to catechism, at school. But I went to, I grew up when I was a kid, I went to Catholic school, so everybody I knew was Catholic. And when I got to America, like the school was non-denominational, so
And how old were you?
9.
Wow.
And so I remembered, you know, being like, "Oh, are you going to catechism?" And she's like,
Huh?
this girl with like a little crush on. And she was like, "No, I'm a Protestant." I was like, "Oh, really?"
Oh
Just
my
like I
God, that
was
is
so shocked.
brilliant.
And now, like, I go to Dash's school. I was talking to my manager yesterday, and I told you, like, in the beginning, this is a sidebar, but basically, he played Division 1 football, and we were talking about my son maybe playing Division 1 basketball. I'm like, yeah, he's in prep school now, but it's like so weird. Like everybody's so white. He's like, yep, that's prep school. And he's black, and he was just like, yeah, when I went to Buffalo for like, to this private university, I was like 35,000 kids and maybe like 1,000 black kids. And it was like, it was really kind of weird. And I'm like, yeah, that's basically what my son's school is like. And they're all the black kids are all on the basketball team, basically.
Yeah, but of course. Wait,
So
but you were talking about something else. That was your diversion, but what was it from?
that my son's school is actually a Catholic school also. And so they have to go to service like every other week.
Wow.
And they're like, you don't have to be Catholic, but you do have to go to service, and you can use it as a time to meditate and reflect and whatever. So hopefully he is doing that. I don't think they let them look at their phones. So.
Well, that's a good thing. Yeah, no, I grew up in a Jewish household where um my mother's side were all religious, like Hasidim and Orthodox,
Oh wow.
and my father's were not. And I had no interest whatsoever, and I really didn't like going to temple. And they said, "Look, just get bar mitzvahed, and you never have to go again." And I went to Hebrew school and got bar mitzvahed and never returned until I became a waiter, and then I started doing bar mitzvahs and weddings at temples and Jewish centers. Uh, but yeah, no, never. Not really a part of my life ever, which I think is not necessarily a great thing.
No,
Um,
but it's kind of fascinating. We're talking about meditation, but really it's and I think that was my point, is like, there was a meditative kind of aspect to it. Like when I go to a church now, I've associated it with kind of negative thoughts, because it's not, because you have to learn all this stuff, and I don't necessarily believe in it, and I think religion can be really, it can be a force for good, but it can also be and again, same thing as like the corrupt stuff you were talking about. It's just like anything taken to an extreme is not necessarily a good thing. But I shouldn't probably try to start to talk about any of that. I but I do think like that was a place to meditate, and a place away from, kind of a sanctuary in a way. That was, the church was a sanctuary.
yeah, no, I love that. That's
And a
why you're such a
sanctuary from like
spiritual guy now.
what's that?
That's why you're such a spiritual guy now.
Yeah, I'm not really that spiritual, but I do like to meditate, and I miss doing it. But I always find it's hard to get. I think that's the issue for me. It's like hard to get into the space where I can feel like I'm starting to let go. Takes like a 10 minutes. I don't feel like I have that much time.
Yeah, I did. I meditate for 15 minutes and rarely any longer. But that's part of it. In the beginning, it was like I had to come to a realization, oh, I have the time. I have 15 minutes. I waste 15 minutes on so many other things all day long.
That's true.
And it was really coming to that realization where it's like, oh no, no, I can actually stop. I can do this right now. And then I found it easier to do it first thing in the morning. But if I don't get to do it first thing in the morning for whatever reason, I can come back to it and realize, oh yeah, you have the time. Like and that is definitely part of it where I resisted, like I'm busy, I got to go do this thing.
Yeah.
Realize, nah, you could prioritize anything you want in life, and prioritizing that has been really a positive.
Yeah, I think that's part of it too, is like there's a part of it that's work. It feels like work to me a little bit. And I'd rather watch TV, to be honest.
Well, what's so great is everyone is so different. In other words, I really do need to do it same time every day. It serves me
Yeah.
really well. But other people could totally be like on the train and go, "Oh, I got to meditate today." And then the next day they'll be like getting ready to make dinner and go, "Oh, let me meditate first." Like everyone is so different and people can create their habits in so many different ways. But for me, if I didn't do it relatively the same time in the same way every day, I would not continue to do it. Like
Right.
it
So I
would
think
fall off my radar really quickly.
yeah, that's an important point also to like, especially to get into the habit of it and to just get, into,
But it's weird. Like I have not been doing the kettlebells every day. I've been doing them like 4 or 5 times a week.
yeah,
And
probably better for you to do it that way.
yeah, but I really kind of think like I'm of the belief when I don't do it every day, it easily falls away. But I've been doing them pretty consistently.
That's
So
good.
it is good. I really love them. I find them to be fun in a way that dumbbells are stupid. But I've been doing
Well,
those other
kettlebells are
I've been doing those other dumbbell exercises now as well. I have a home thing I mix up.
which one?
The ones I showed you earlier
Oh
with
yeah, those, yeah, the
the
forms.
wrist.
No, I
Uh,
will say, like, I went to yoga and I felt like, oh, I'm still like pretty limber and mobile, and
that's great.
I credit kettlebells for that, to be honest.
Oh, that's awesome. If I went back to yoga, if I went to vinyasa for 30 days, I would be back where I was. But I don't, same thing with meditating. Like I don't have the 30 days to like get in my car, drive 10 minutes, take a hour 15 yoga class, get back in my car. Like that's 3 hours of my day. Um,
Yeah,
and
you just don't want to dedicate the time to it.
I totally don't. Like I get it. And here, like the most I'll do is I'll do the Ashtanga warm up, which is like 20, 25 minutes.
Yeah,
But I don't work out for hours at a time. I bike for an hour to an hour and a half. But other than that, like
every day.
well now, probably not for till May 1st. It's 20 something degrees outside. I bike in 30s and 40s, but not when there's snow and ice on the ground.
Yeah,
And so yeah, I bike half of the winter. It's much more limited.
right.
Uh, but I do like biking in the cold, but I get totally geared up. But I do appreciate that the cold is healthy and it's rather painful way. The winds here are 20 miles an hour, so they just kill you.
Yeah,
They really, in the winter, it is just fierce, but that's cool too. But my kettlebell and all the whole thing is like 25 minutes probably. Um,
yeah.
yeah,
When I work out. Actually, I usually end up doing an hour because I'm like, oh, I'll do some dips. Oh, I'll do some because my lats are, one of my lats is so much weaker than the other, so I'll just do rows for my left lat,
I should be doing a lot of them. I have no lats, I'll never do a pull up my whole life.
rows.
Um, It was great. I listened to an interview with a hockey player who can't do pull-ups. And I was like, whoa, I would never have thought that there was a professional athlete in the entire world that can't do pull-ups.
No, pull-ups are some people can do pull-ups. Like there's some people who can like pull down, do lat pull downs with whatever amount of weight, 150 pounds can do pull-up. It's like a different mechanical
That's
thing.
interesting. That's interesting. Yeah, I
Yeah,
can't do pull-ups.
people can do tons of pull-ups, and like I see guys, putting on the belt with like a weight and doing pull-ups. I'm like, I could never do that. I never say never, right? But
Right.
there's a dude in my gym who does it with like a 45-pound plate, and he's doing like 10 pull-ups.
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah. And it's just hanging from your waist, essentially, So
No, some people are born with different musculatures. Mine are just too long. That's what my thing is my lats are too loose and
yeah.
long, and therefore they got no tension to frickin' pull me up. I can't do hangs for more than like a minute. I can't do any kind of one-armed hang.
Um, yeah, I know a guy who could do one-arm pull-ups. That shit was crazy.
That is crazy, yeah, but it's cool. I totally fetishize that stuff. I love to watch insanely strong people do incredible tricks.
So do you just have one kettlebell of each?
Yeah, I have one each.
All right, so you can start doing rows on your chair.
On this chair?
Yeah, or like, you have to be up on something.
Oh, I thought you do them on your hands and knees.
The rows?
Yeah.
Nah, you want to have a little more range than that.
So I'm just going straight out and back in.
Yeah. But just make sure you're engaging your lat, which I know you know how to do. All right, you could even do them here.
Right.
Right, just here. Just pull up.
That's great. Beautiful form, dude.
And up here, not here, right?
Yeah, no, totally. That's good looking form.
Thanks. And try not to rotate. Obviously, you're really locking your lats down.
That's great. I have been obsessing with shoulders on my back when I'm cycling.
Yeah.
So different. That's half of people's problems. Half of people with injuries, wrist, hand, arm stuff, shoulder stuff, is they don't engage their upper back to do whatever the action they're doing with their arms. So wild to see.
No, it's crazy. I have a, not to bring up another one of my clients, but her lower body is so strong. Like she can do anything basically, and then her upper body is like it's getting strong because we're working on it. But when we started, it was like she's like, yeah, I used to be able to climb rope. She was doing like all these um Spartans and Tough Mudders and kind of crap. And she had like no upper body strength left. I don't know what happened. So
That's
building
wild.
that back up. But as I saw like lats and your traps and rhomboids and stuff, all those muscles that are just a lot of people like they get tight. So they start, especially if you're like this all the time, the muscles get tight and then they're just not necessarily active.
No, rhomboids are one of the biggest things, one of the biggest problems. I teach rhomboid stuff in yoga all the time. Maybe I will do it since I have to teach at noon. Rhomboids are a huge piece of the puzzle for me,
Yeah.
is that everyone's shoulders are off the back and the rhomboids are too long and too weak and need a ton more tone to support everything.
I should probably be doing a lot more face pulls.
A lot more what?
Face pulls.
Oh, great. Totally.
That's the that's so good for your rhomboids.
Yeah, I do that on my machine. Same thing where I do them on the machines on the middle of my bike ride. Um,
And
it's so different when I focus on shoulders on the back,
yeah,
when I set the shoulder blades to the rhomboids and I do that for every one of my actions, all the pushing and pulling, it is so completely different.
I remember I was working with someone and I'm like, he's doing push-ups. I'm like, stop rounding your shoulders and bring your like engage your lats and bring your shoulder blades together and down, more down than together. And he's like, that's so much harder. I'm like, exactly. If
That's
you put
great.
tension on your chest, then you're actually working the muscle you're supposed to work.
No, we use pec minor for everything, right? That's that whole idea that if you do that and you shorten pec minor, it
Yeah,
messes the rhomboids and especially the lower traps. What do you do for people's lower traps? Do you have a distinctive exercise for that?
I don't. I use the face pulls, right? So
For everything?
you take the rope overhand and then try to bring it like this.
Oh, that's
People
great.
can't do it. They just go down. You know what I mean? But you want to really
Yeah,
try to give it open and bring the lats down. So I use that, and yeah, I don't have like a specific lower trap exercise. I think the
but that does it.
the pull downs, the
Yeah,
rows are gonna work on those, right? The rows will work on those a lot. So I always have people do rows because you can do it in so many different variations that'll kind of target different muscles as well.
that's great.
Yeah.
Killer.
Um,
All right, I think we're done.
I think we're done. So we've talked about a lot of we kind of strayed from meditation, as I suspected would happen. Um, if you've enjoyed our podcast today, please leave us a rating or review. We love doing these. We want to continue to do them. At the risk of repeating myself, you know, your feedback and your ratings really help us to continue to produce these, and we do want to continue to produce them for once a month for the next 12 to 15 years. So, right?
Sure.
We might run out of topics to talk about. We can always talk about cooking or something. Yeah, thank you for listening today. Thanks for all being here. Thanks, Jonathan, for sharing all your knowledge with us, and we'll see you next month.
Excellent. Have a good one, Alex. Take care, everyone. Be well.
Bye.